A very warm welcome to all of you for the webinar on topic brands meddling in the crisis, who can win? We have esteemed panelists over here and our principal, Dr. Binoy Joseph, Father Francis Manavalan, Assistant Director, Valley Campus, and all my faculty colleagues and friends and invitees who have joined. So over to Dr. Binoy Joseph, Principal, for the welcome address. Sir, please.
Good evening, everyone. Respected Professor Abraham Koshi, MS Shraddha Shankar, Moderator Dr. Padmanabhan NS, Dr. Sunil Puliakot, our new Director, Rajagiri Business School, Father Francis Sebastian, CMI, our Assistant Director, faculty members, delegates from the corporates, faculties from other institutions, well-wishers and friends of Rajagiri, and my dear students. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rajagiri webinar on brands meddling in the crisis, who can win? How brands react to crisis due to COVID-19 pandemic is quite interesting. Most of them acted rising to the occasion to grab the opportunity. Many brands have repositioned and repurposed themselves. Some initiatives by some of them were temporary initiatives. However, some initiatives by other brands are with a long-term perspective. Brewers and cosmetic companies turned to manufacturing hand sanitizers like Diageo, ABB, NBV, LVM, Cheradico, Nivea, and so on. Many automobile companies repurposed manufacturing capacity and put people back to work to make respirators and ventilators like Mahindra, so many examples. Starbucks and other companies expanded mental health benefits for its employees. P&G has come up with Whispers Mobile Shala and free phone-based learning system where girls can continue learning on various subjects of the school and also about their health and hygiene even when schools are closed. Reebok offered personalized workouts to their Twitter followers who asked for advices. Nike immediately moved to adopt a new message, play inside, play for the world. Taj, Airbnb, and other similar companies offered healthcare workers free stays and food. Many edutech providers like Coursera, Khan Academy, and so on introduced free live classes for students on its various platforms. Online food aggregators like Zomato and Swiggy have become grocery and vegetable delivery providers. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and Audi have changed their logo to raise awareness about the importance of social distancing. Dosery, an ad exchange platform for branded healthcare professional marketing, allowed companies to advertise on its platforms for free and help them reach out to doctors. These are just a minuscule list. If to speak about all global, national, regional, and local brands and its response to COVID-19 pandemic crisis, it may take even days altogether. Now let me get on to my role of welcoming our resource persons for the Rajagiri webinar on brands meddling in the crisis, who can win. We have with us two renowned resource persons for the webinar, Professor Abraham Koshi, former professor at IIM Ahmedabad. Professor Abraham Koshi is a highly reputed academician, consultant, and a corporate educator in the field of marketing management. He is a senior professor. He was a senior professor at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, India. Dr. Koshi is a co-author of the best-selling book, Marketing Management, A South Asian Perspective, with the legendary marketing guru, Professor Philip Kotler. In addition, he was also the chairman of the Federal Bank Limited, a leading private sector commercial bank in India. Professor Koshi has been in the board of directors of many companies like Malayalam Manorama, Zira Sanitary Wares, Autola Industries, and Deepak Cements and Chemicals. He was also a member of advisory committees constituted by government organizations and industry associations. Professor Koshi is a consultant to many international companies on marketing strategy and has helped companies to recraft their target segment focus, launch new brands, review their brand portfolios, and reassess brand architecture and reposition and reload brands. Sir, as I mentioned before, your details runs pages and pages. Due to paucity of time, let me conclude, and I welcome you to this Rajagiri webinar, and I'm sure the audience is going to get enriched a lot by your vast experience in the field of consulting, training, and research. Professor Abraham Koshi, I welcome you all. I welcome you to this Rajagiri webinar, and on behalf of everyone present here, I extend you a very hearty welcome, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The other resource persons for the Rajagiri webinar today is Shraddha Shankar, Ms. Shraddha Shankar. As mentioned by Professor Abraham Koshi, she was a 2004 batch of PGP IIM Ahmedabad, and she has more than 14 years of experience in P&G. She was the assistant brand manager, then rose up to brand manager, then to a region brand manager, then a global brand manager, then associate brand manager, now a senior director in Procter & Gamble, especially the baby care Asia Pacific region. She has enormous experience in establishing various brands of P&G, especially in the Asia Pacific region. She has worked closely with various countries and has been successful all through these years. Ma'am, your experience in managing brands, especially various brands of P&G, is going to help our audience a lot, especially how their responses are in this COVID-19 crisis and who are going to win. Ma'am, on behalf of everyone present here, I extend a very hearty welcome to our Rajagiri webinar.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure, and it's a pleasure to be on the same panel as Professor Koshi. Thank you so much.
This crisis also has done some shifts in consumer behavior. It includes anytime on omni-channel shopping with large utilization of digital mode, changes in basket composition with emphasis on products in category of emergency supplies, healthcare, hygiene and cleaning, health food, etc. The frequency of shopping online is reduced, but with larger basket size. The tendency to stock non-perishables and hard to find items is on the rise. Increased chances to try online stores or those offering home delivery is also on the rise. Reduced restaurant hopping trends and more experimental cooks at home. Focus on so the consumer behavior, if you ask me, is changing drastically, and how well the brands are responding is a matter of challenge. If you ask me, the recent interesting statistics report in MIT Sloan Management Review are 54% reported that they had made purchases from brands that were new to them, and that new brands accounted for more than 30% of their shopping carts at checkout. The most frequently cited reasons for purchasing from a new brand included favorite brand was out of stock, 32%, and willingness to try new brands, 32%. The product category with the highest trial rate for new brands and packaged goods and beverages, 25%, followed by household care products, 20%, fresh and organic foods, 13%, and personal products, 13%. We have an enlightened expert panel here. I thought of posing some questions on brands to them. Whether the loyalty, especially the brand loyalty, is getting questioned or it is just a new habit. Gone are the days of ideal product, but only a solution that fits the customer's needs, and outcome matters a lot these days. Should brands focus on adding value, not just price? Should brands focus on educating customers, not just promotion? So there are quite interesting paradigms happening. There are quite interesting questions, and I am sure this profound panelists will be able to help us to answer our questions and help us to clear the muddle that we have about meddling of the brands in this COVID-19 crisis. And we are all eagerly waiting to know who will win at the end. Once again, thanking once again the resource persons for the day, and also congratulating Dr. Sunil Puliakot, the Director RBS, Father Francis Sebastian CMI, the Marketing Area Chair, especially the moderator, Dr. Padmanabhan NS, and thanking all participants for this webinar. Once again, welcome you all for this webinar. I remain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And actually, Vinoy sir have posted a lot of questions to the panel, which in fact I too had in my mind. But anyway, I just have shared just to set a stage. Already, Binoy sir have already set a stage, but still to add on, I will have just some concerns which I thought we can have a discussion on that. If you just look into our current scenario, I think we are in an abnormal stage. In fact, we call it as a new normal, where you can see that countries, companies, and brands across the globe are under crisis. And marketers, if you go, marketers find worried customers everywhere. Even if our principal have pointed out all the positives. But what my concern is, when it comes to this context, what the brand should do. Should they join the bandwagon and milk the fat of immunity marketing? And this is what a lot of examples which was actually being quoted by our principal. And or should we go with different products? Or else we have to think of some sort of positioning, altering the positioning, maybe like reverse positioning or something. How can you add value to your brand or brand value to the customer? And finally, who can win? With this, I just hand over the session to our first panelist, Professor Abraham Koshi. Sir, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe I think we should reverse the order. I would request Shraddha to talk, because it's more than nearly a decade and a half since I heard her. So I would like to listen to her first, so that I can get some ideas from her.
Okay. So now that you're forcing me, so I'll tell you, look, I mean, as a person in PNG, I actually lead the Pampers brand for Southeast Asia. So I think we are in the midst of every day trying to figure out what we need to do differently. I think the way we have always thought about it, I think PNG as a company and Pampers as a brand, is that we have always been about touching lives and improving lives. So I think the starting point of both our products and our strategy at the heart of it is, how can we use our products and our services to improve consumers' lives? And then they reward you, and then everything is a consequence of that. But I think at the heart for us, it starts with, how can I improve her life? I think what doesn't stop is better products that are more convenient, that are the right value for a consumer. So I think the pandemic does not change that. Consumers are constantly looking for superior propositions that improve their lives. I think what has happened is the context of the ways brands can improve their lives change. So I'll give you an example on Pampers. So we have asked ourselves, where can Pampers as an expert in baby care help consumers in this new way? And the number one thing we can do is, moms and parents are stuck at home with little kids that they cannot take outside, and they cannot take them to school, they cannot take them anywhere else. So for example, we started an entire campaign with, in India and in all markets across the world, together with partners like First Cry, with Lazada, Shopee, so, kind of all of our e-com partners, to create content at home for moms and babies that could keep babies entertained at home, right? I mean, that is not something that Pampers would typically do, but we pivot what improving life means in the pandemic. We did something similar in the US, because in the US, they had stopped maternity classes. So these prenatal classes where moms go and learn how to give birth and how to be ready for the hospital. So given the pandemic, hospitals are still working, but there are no more maternity classes. So Pampers worked together with an expert to create videos and online content of birthing, prenatal, etc. material that again we streamed free. So again, I think it's about finding where you as a brand can continue to touch lives. The third example I will give you is more physical. So I think you mentioned products that kind of use their plants to create new materials. So the product that makes face masks and that makes diapers is actually the same. It's called nonwovens. So Pampers, basically we created in 3 global markets. We changed our lines that were making diapers and we used them to make masks for the people in the P&G plant and the offices because there was a mask shortage all over the world. So, I mean, I'm just giving you specific examples of what I and my team around us have done. And the principle at the heart of it was we are all about improving people's lives. We're all about giving them a better experience and, you know, giving them a service or a good that can give them something better than where they are today. And with the pandemic, the context of what we can give them changes and the services we can give them changes. And that's the way we have been trying to do it. I think it's important not to cash in on this immunity marketing and, you know, cash in on the crowd, assuming that you are a long-term brand, because I think maybe you will get the initial peak and maybe you will get a short-term advantage. But I think consumers and, you know, people at the end see through it and they reward companies and reward brands that actually have the consumers well at the heart of it. So that's always been, I think, you know, the guiding principle that we have operated in. And that's how we have decided where our pivots and the way we've changed our communication makes sense and what areas we think are just cashing in on the trend and that is not actually improving the life of others.
Super. I think wonderful. I think, can I speak for some time? Yeah, the extremely important aspect of what you mentioned is, I think the most important aspect you mentioned is that, you know, continue to invest in improving life of your customer. And I think it's a very, very fundamental aspect which you mentioned. I think companies that will win in future are precisely these kinds of companies who actually invest in, continuing to invest in ensuring that the consumer's welfare and consumers, you know, life is improved, a significant part of it. I thought that, you know, one of the most visible aspect of this entire crisis globally is essentially overall reduction in market sizes. Sales have gone down, markets have shrunk. Some of the product categories have seen complete evaporation of markets. You know, luxury brands, for example, a significant evaporation of market because, you know, any brand that was actually what we call a, you know, a self-expressive brand, hedonic brands, those brands have taken a backseat. I think that is one aspect which one can look at. In other words, overall market has, you know, reduced, sales have gone down. Some of the companies are facing a big crisis essentially because of the sales reduction. And in this kind of a situation, to my mind, the knee-jerk reaction of many companies and thinking of some of the managers are, how do you reduce costs? Sales are down, so therefore, how do you reduce cost? Can I see some of the participants, you know,
Yeah.
I'm talking to, yeah, can you just stream? Somebody need to be there in front of me, otherwise I'm talking to a screen, just a blank screen. Yeah, you are also fine. Somebody, some people need to be there, otherwise I can't think. Yeah, so all these reduction in market, reduction in sales, the typical knee-jerk reaction is how do you reduce the cost? Cost reduction becomes, because, you know, you need to maintain a certain margin, certain top line. What does it actually mean? The biggest casualty I find is downsizing the sales force. I mean, when this whole thing is happening, therefore downsize the sales force, reduce the number, so that you in any case you can't service certain markets because of physical problems, because you're not accessible to those markets physically, and so on and so forth. In other words, your total sales force become much lower, and the most preferred word to describe this is rationalizing the sales force. Essentially meaning that you are sending a whole lot of people away back to home. That is where what Shraddha mentioned also becomes important, that you don't disturb the boat or completely upset the whole boat and throw out people on the way because the boat is going to sink. No. If you do that, the problem is that there's nobody to save the boat when it comes to a crisis. Now, the second aspect in which you try to reduce or rationalize cost or reduce the cost is in terms of quality compromises. Why don't we have a lower priced version? Lower priced version means you compromise on packaging, you compromise on certain product features and so on and so forth. In other words, you actually end up with a very poor clone of yourself later. Some companies it is easy to do that, because if it's a garment manufacturing company, you start looking at the cheapest button available, the cheapest kind of material available to do that. And the whole implication of that is that you are actually affecting the long-term health of the brand itself. A third big casualty I have seen is cutting the advertisement budget. Reduce the whole thing. Why don't we do a complete rationalization of advertising budget? Any which way, we don't know, 50% of the advertisement budget is not, achieving any purpose. The only problem is we don't know which 50%. It's a very old saying. So therefore, reduce the advertisement budget. In other words, you are already facing a crisis, so you add fuel to that fire. And what is the impact of all these things? Reduction in, rationalizing sales force, reduction in quality, and, reducing the advertising budget. Ultimately, it affects the whole morale of your sales force, the whole morale of your marketing team. And therefore, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your sales are anyway down. You do all these things, so your sales will be down. So therefore, then you say that, look, see, we knew that sales are going to be down. In other words, you are actually speeding up the demise of the brand. And later on, when the wave of demand comes back, you think that you can ride that wave. Only problem is that your boat has already developed major fissures. So therefore, riding a wave probably will increase the leakage of the boat itself. So therefore, be sensitive to these things. It's a time to actually improve the efficiency, not reducing the cost indiscriminately. I think that is the first and the foremost aspect. Probably, I think, Shraddha can share her thoughts on the general trend she has observed. See, companies like P&G are exceptionally well-managed professional companies. So therefore, you don't see some of these kind of knee-jerk reactions and, panicky kind of reaction when they look at it. In fact, they look at these things as an opportunity to improve their efficiency, improve their product offering, and improve their competitive position in the market itself. So therefore, I would like to, have some inputs from Shraddha in terms of your own observation.
No, absolutely. But I mean, I think, Professor Koshy, I think again, if you look at a company like P&G, I think we are also lucky because we provide products and services in the whole spectrum. So while we have, including my own, markets that are really, really declining because consumers don't want to go out or they're using less, We have other parts of our business, like we make Safeguard soap and dishwashing liquid and fabric care, which is massively growing because of, people staying at, sorry.
See, first time.
I request you people, please mute yourself, please.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I was saying, so I think one is like, in my experience, we have also, like, I think FMCG in general has been luckier because you tend to have goods and services across the spectrum that, slightly balances each other out. But I completely agree. I mean, I think when the market is declining, the easiest first thought to maintain margin in that quarter, in the next 6 months, is indeed the easiest cuts. But the easiest cuts lead to the worst long-term potential. So I don't think there is an easy solution. But I think this is where I think, as Professor Koshi said, I think we have to resist the urge of the easy cuts, which are actually the most hurtful cuts in the long term, and try to use this time to see what is the most inefficient thing that you are doing. You start from the bottom and you start removing as many of the inefficiencies as possible. And hopefully when the crisis abates, because the demand will come back. It is not, I mean, of course it will be slow and the recovery will take time, but it will come back. So that, are you the brand, are you the company that when the whole thing comes back, have you used the opportunity to really, be efficient, and actually you come out stronger? So I think there is a bit of a mindset. And I think, of course, when you are a smaller company and you are living, have less controls, it's obviously more difficult. But I think we have to all constantly balance the urge to do the easy versus the right thing. And I think this is the time you will see probably brands and companies that do the right thing will probably emerge as winners in the end. It might not be easy to see today who is winning and who is losing necessarily, I'm not sure. But I think 6 months down, a year down the line, you will see who emerges, out of this. So absolutely, Professor Koshi, couldn't agree more.
And wonderful. In fact, during this crisis, the very loud and clear unspoken words by the consumer is, for heaven's sake, please don't desert me. I think many companies don't even listen to that unspoken word. And therefore, they start looking at in terms of repositioning, in terms of introducing, certain kinds of low priced versions and things like that. In other words, you're not reposing your faith on the consumer. There are innumerable empirical research studies that shows that during a crisis, those companies that actually repose their faith in consumer by, advertising, by improving their sales efficiency, improving their distribution efficiency, connecting better with the consumer, those companies actually emerge clear winners, significantly clear winners when the whole crisis passes. In fact, it's a very important global crisis. In fact, one of the first lessons I learned as a student of marketing in IIM was essentially one class in which we actually debated this idea. I don't know whether when you were there, Professor Labdi Bhandari was not there. Labdi Bhandari was one of my professor who passed away in an air accident near Ahmedabad. He was my professor. In his class, there was a very interesting discussion. In fact, when I was a student, precisely on this topic. And he very clearly said that, it is like a small luggage which you're carrying. You need to carry your luggage because your essential things are with you. And just because there is a storm, you just don't throw away your luggage. So when you throw away your luggage after the storm, there will be no dress for you to wear. And therefore, you will in fact be in a much worse position. In fact, a very interesting kind of a comment which he made. Therefore, consumers need to reinforce. And what is it that, in fact, let me add one more dimension. In fact, I was talking to some of these advertisers and marketeers. And what I find is that 99.9% of the effort is to get a consumer into your fold. You don't even spend 1% effort in terms of thanking those consumers who have been with you. You are taking them for granted. During crisis, you need to actually go back to those consumers who have been with you and tell them that, look, you have been, with a good product, a good choice. In fact, I remember, I don't know which brand, it was one of those brand, if I remember correctly, it was an ice cream bar. Very nice, word they had. Yehi hai right choice, baby. You remember? I don't know how many of you remember. There was a very interesting kind of a thing. Yehi hai right choice, baby. At the end, they'll say that this is the right choice, kind of a thing. I thought it was if I vaguely recall, it was some kind of an ice cream brand or something. See,
It's Pepsi, huh?
It's Pepsi.
Pepsi. Correct. So in fact, that don't look at that word, but look at the philosophy. You need to tell your consumers you have made the right choice of being with us. And how many companies even bother to actually reinforce this kind of an image? And they only, there's a biblical story. Some of the participants might recall the biblical story of the prodigal son. A very typical story where a son has deserted the father and went home, and his other son was with him, and and father was overjoyed when that son who ran away came back. So therefore the elder son who was with the father actually revolted. He said that, look, I have been with you, but you never took care of me. You only are happy when your son who deserted you came back. The philosophy of the whole thing is that marketeers need to focus on those customers who are with you, not those people who have been switching, those who have gone, actually who have deserted the category itself. So therefore, effort of promotion, effort of advertising, effort of sales need to focus on the consumers who are with you, reinforcing that they have posed faith in your own brand, and that has been the good choice they have made. I think let me touch upon one aspect of consumer behavior, which I think is an important metamorphosis of this entire thing. The one choice, one aspect of customer aspect is, I think consumers actually will deploy a far simpler methods of evaluating brands. See, in fact, if you look at the brand choice models, you have all the weightages and attributes and rating of the attribute multiplied by the weightages, and then summation of the whole thing to get a brand score. Very, very complex kind of a thing. In other words, consumers think on multiple dimensions. Consumers give importance for multiple dimensions, evaluate different brands on those dimensions. In fact, during a crisis, consumers will desert that kind of a behavior. They will actually simplify the algorithm they use to actually make choices. Their choice will be based on much simpler, criteria. And therefore, you need to rediscover the basic. It's a very important, I remember, I don't want to mention the name of the company. It's a well-known company. It's an entrepreneur-driven company. And they were introducing a product, at that time they were thinking of introducing a toothpaste. So, to compete with the multinationals and things like that. So there was a presentation, a pitch by an advertising agency, and one advertising agency was selected, a national advertising agency. And there was a very interesting pitch by that. And they made a full study research in terms of how do consumers choose a toothpaste, and what are the attributes important, and all those kinds of full works, and made a full presentation. The owner of the company was half asleep. I noted he was actually dozing off in between, and then at the end they said that, okay, this is the kind of approach. So he opened his eyes, looked at, he said, very nice. But no, just simple, white teeth, that is all. So he finally said that only simple attribute, whiteness of the teeth, nothing complicated, protection of the gum, and all those kinds of things. I thought that his approach was a very simple approach. He was talking about a set of consumers who are not very familiar with the product, or who are not. Can you mute?
Please mute.
Can you mute? I think your voice.
Can you please? Yeah, we will do so.
Yeah. So, see, the whole aspect which I wanted to mention is that consumers' choice process will become much simpler, not in terms of multi-attribute, multi-weightage kind of a model to very simple kind of a model. And I think, here, one suggestion I have for the youngsters and also the faculty members who might probably be listening to this is just one simple request. Talk to 5 people. Just 5 people. Don't do a big sample research. Talk to 5 people. Try to understand how do they make choices in today's world. Take one category of product where the alternatives are much larger. Now, suppose you ask them how do they choose a rice? You don't have too many varieties of rice to choose from. There's a usual strong preference. Take a category where there are choices and try to talk to consumers, 5 consumers, to find out how do they make choices in this crisis. What are the important aspects they look for? They'll understand it's a very simplified model, not a very complicated kind of a model that they use. Therefore, keep it simple. The principle is keep it simple. Communicate simple to consumers. And also, this is a time for all the companies to rediscover a very, very simple truth in advertising, what is known as top of the mind recall. I mean, not in terms of very complicated, top of the mind recall, or what we call the TOM. You need to reinforce that top of the mind recall. If you want to buy, you don't have too much of cognitive energy. Given the pandemic, you don't have too much of mental energy, or what we call the cognitive resources, to bother about multiple attributes and multiple weightages and evaluate all these choices. You will use a simple algorithm and therefore keep the choice very simple. And that probably will be one of the success for, as the entrepreneur, a very successful entrepreneur. I think if I mention the name, almost everybody will know the name, and the product is also very well known. He said, no, simple, white teeth. That actually captured the whole thing. We are very, sort of impressed with that simple thinking, because he replicated thinking of his consumer, who are actually middle-class consumers, not the very sophisticated consumer. So therefore, advertisers today, if you want to win, keep the whole thing simple. Yeah. Shraddha, you can add something and I'll come back later. Your own observation and experience here.
I don't know if there were other questions, but I think on this one, what was interesting is also, I think, one of the things we have seen is also, there are 2 classes of consumers. I think the way people get impacted by the pandemic quite differently. And I think companies also have to choose who are they going to talk to and which one. I think there is one, and probably all of us fall in that, which are the privileged people who are financially and mentally not impacted by the pandemic, right? And for them, all that has changed is the context. These are people who like to travel, which they can't travel anymore. They like eating out, but they can't eat out anymore. And these are people who are using the pandemic to relearn things. These are the people on Instagram baking sourdough bread and cooking new recipes at home and finding, new experiences. So these are people where you can really serve them by serving them new experiences where your brand or your company would not have had a chance. This is where the Nike at home training, this is where, that entire, entire companies have been created, Zoom and others that didn't exist for these people. And then, of course, there is the other set of consumers, and not every company serves every group, right? That are obviously heavily impacted. They are impacted either mentally or financially, or they do not have a job, or the amount of their pay has been impacted, or etc. Where I think the needs become very different. The needs may actually become that I cannot afford the experiences I was having. I need to make choices of not making, like I need to choose between food for my children and something else. And I think, it's not easy. I think, again, like the brands I work for or my company probably tend to serve more the first variety of people. And I think that's just the reality. Of course, we have some products that serve the other set as well. I think we just need to be cognizant of that, the further inequality sort of that is coming, and how the pandemic is affecting our consumers, and how, that one consumer is almost becoming two. And also recognizing that I think what serves them starts to look very different. And then brands can pick, or companies can pick where they want to play. And the way to play with the first group is obviously very, very different versus, where and how you play with the second group, where indeed it might actually be more of driving more value, smaller packs, giving them more offers than they were used to, just because of, the conditions that they're now in. So again, that would probably be the only additional observation from my end, in terms of, the consumers becoming very different in terms of how the pandemic is impacting them.
Okay. Shall I just have a small query? It's for both. My question is very simple. See, now everyone is jumping into this immunity marketing. Will it actually benefit the brand in the long term? Or it's just, as you said, a shortcut? Is that what actually brands are thinking of right now?
Say it again, which one?
They are all moving into the immunity marketing. Everyone is talking about immunity. Will it actually benefit them in the long run? Or is it, as Professor Koshy, as you said, is it just to keep the top of the mind recall?
No, I think, immunity marketing, essentially, if you are looking at, is a fad. In fact, suppose you are saying that, my product is now better packed and more immune. And you are actually saying that, look, damn it, till yesterday I was cheating you. Today I realize that I can't do that. So therefore, that I think is more of a negative admission of, I think what you need to do is that focus on the brand value. What you have been standing for, keep that value intact, rather than just reacting to a certain environmental stimuli. Not that you suddenly become very conscious about the consumers today. And until yesterday, you are only looking at it as a source of jingling your cash box. No, I think you need to be honest about. See, companies who are long-term, P&G is a good example of a company which has long-term this thing. Is essentially focused on providing better value to consumers all the time through research and development, through kind of offers they make, and therefore they have a much long-term, sort of capability to compete and survive in a superior way. I think two aspects I need to mention essentially in terms of consumer behavior. Number one is in terms of the one shift which one can visibly see is that the choice array, the number of choice within the category consumers are looking, the choice array has now become much smaller than what it used to be. Earlier, you had the mental relaxation to look at greater alternative. Today, you are actually having a much stringent mental condition to look at a smaller array. In fact, this is one major impact. Therefore, unless you are included in a smaller array of those products, you will never be considered, array of those brands, you will never be considered for a buying. The second one, important aspect, that a complete change in consumers' behavior from an exploration shopping to a destination shopping. Exploration shopping essentially means that let me go to the shop and find out what is good. and let me look at the whole thing. So therefore, let me go to one shop and then go. See, for example, if you look at Kapda Ka Khareed, you know, if you look at shopping for garments, I mean, you definitely will go visit more than one shop, because, you know, your whole pleasure is in terms of, you know, doing that shopping. So that behavior is significantly curtailed because you are scared whether you will get affected by, you know, pandemic and things like that. Therefore, even if you shop, you are very purposeful, you are destination oriented. You actually limit your choice. In fact, some of these things are, you know, people talk about new normal and things like that. This is essentially, if you look at it as a cycle. So from a frugal availability of products and services and retail points to abundance of, you know, retail points and shopping malls and things like that, to finally coming to a more stable kind of a thing. For example, today I read that in Ernakulam or in Kerala, the big shopping mall, Lulu Mall, has been closed. So therefore, because of pandemic, Lulu Mall has been closed. It became a fairly important news in the newspaper, which means that, you know, all those people used to go to Lulu Mall in the morning and spend time till the evening in the context of a shopping, essentially from floating from one shop to another shop to, you know, essentially satisfy your, you know, stimulation of your inquisitiveness has actually vanished. So the shopping mall itself is closed. In other words, you need to be much more careful in terms of where you're shopping. Therefore, you predetermine many of these kinds of things. So the last point, somebody, you know, you mentioned about issues like loyalty and, you know, ideal point. I mean, the loyalty concept itself is a very interesting concept, you know, applicable only in, say, it is actually, we ask a question, whether it is within a purchase cycle, you know, loyalty, or between a purchase cycle loyalty. In other words, you know, loyalty means that you toggle between 2 or 3 brands every time. In a purchase cycle, I buy A, then B, then A. Is that the kind of loyalty cycle? Or is it in terms of random between 3, 4 brands? In fact, you know, this question of loyalty has been very elusive. It has been like the elusive mirage all marketers have been after. Every time they look at their mirage seems to be moving forward. So therefore, they are actually going after that mirage. So therefore, loyalty, single product or single brand loyalty exists only in the case of some categories. Some categories will have, you know, show single brand loyalty, partly because of habit formation, partly because of inertia factors. For example, newspaper. Every day morning you are used to a newspaper. Even the newspaper has become a next to a raddi, next to a junk one. You still will find it difficult to change because it has been part of a habit. So except those categories of product, loyalty has been an elusive concept for most of the brands. It is toggling between 2 or 3 brands if it's a frequently purchased product, and new purchase major durables, for example. It is loyalty is essentially a result of your exploration, evaluation, and probably familiarity. If you have a fridge which is X brand, you are exploring to buy a washing machine, good chance that you will buy the same brand because you're happy with the brand of refrigerator you have. Therefore, you're likely to buy the washing machine you have, except in certain cases where your offer can break that loyalty cycle, right? This is about loyalty. I think, Norman, I think I'll conclude from my side.
So shall we take some questions, sir?
Yeah, you can request Shraddha also.
I think, Shraddha ma'am, shall we take some questions from the audience?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, it's open now. I think it's time for you to have some questions. I have a question to Shraddha ma'am, which has been from Dr. Bairam Anand from Pondicherry University. It is, what is the market penetration of P&G in rural areas? And what is the strategy in taking the Pampers into rural areas? And he also want to know about upcoming new brand products to capture the rural areas in the coming years.
Okay, well, I cannot tell you about upcoming
Yeah,
brand launches, but again, like I said, I think I'll be very honest. I think, and if this is specifically about India, I don't think, PNG, to be very honest, doesn't have the widest rural footprint. So I will start by honestly admitting that, because I think the PNG strategy of India has really been superior products which tend to be on the higher side of the pricing, because they are more expensive for us to make. A lot of them are made globally with global materials at very high quality standards, etc. So in general, by virtue of that strategy, PNG in India tends to be quite heavily focused, I would say, in the urban areas and especially in the top cities. I think we keep trying. We keep, I think with Pampers, with Whisper, with Gillette, as well as, with some of the lower end products that we have in the laundry business, are trying to drive, rural adoption, rural penetration. But to be honest, I think there are local companies in India today that better serve those consumers with much more localized offerings that can be offered to those consumers at better value most of the time than what PNG is able to sustainably produce and make. So I think we continue to drive it, but I think it's more limited than not. So I think the answer to your question would be maybe about 20% penetration, which is obviously on the lower end. We continuously try to do it in a way that's sustainably profitable, but also that is still with superior products. And I don't think PNG has cracked the model on rural India, as have not most, I think, multinational companies, because I think of the variety and how difficult it is to actually feed rural India at the value that's needed.
Okay. Okay. Any questions? I think. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. Now, in this pandemic time, all of us are stuck up at home, and we are almost lonely, and we are looking for some kind of an emotional support. So, does it make sense for companies to go for some kind of an emotional branding? To say that we stand with you in the crisis of this time. Look at the Colgate ad. That lady sitting, old lady sitting in a restaurant, and all her sons and daughters are coming, and then suddenly a gentleman comes in, and she introduces him, saying that this I've chosen, and she's showing the ring. So people are looking for emotional support. So does it make sense for companies to go for some kind of an emotional branding so that they can say that we stand with you consumers at the time of this crisis? I think both the panelists can answer the question.
I'll give you my point of view. My point of view is, yes, it works, but only if it's authentic to your brand and your brand is actually doing something to help. Because I think it is, so I don't know the exact example you are giving me, but I think, like, for example, if I think of something like Nike Play Inside, they are taking something that is inherently on their equity where Nike can help, and actually they are doing goods and services where people can play inside and actually help. So I think if it is organic to your brand promise and you can support the emotional statement with a real offering that you are actually using to enableize, I would say yes. And I see many examples of it done well. There are many examples where it's terrible, because you say, I love you, consumer, and I stand with you, but by the way, I do nothing to help your life in any way. And I think consumers see through that. So I would say yes, but only if it's organic to your brand purpose and you are actually doing something with either your product or your service or a donation to actually help. Otherwise, I think it's just playing to the crowd, and consumers will see through it in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, this ad was being released in all the TV channels in India, and basically it is from Colgate, and the Colgate is it stands for sincerity, and it is with the consumers. So maybe for Colgate, it made sense, as you said, because of the brand promise and because of the trust with the consumers, probably could make a rapport. And as you rightly said, it cannot work in all the situations. Thank you.
Okay, there is another question which is from Dr. Sibhu C. Chitran. A recent study on COVID conducted at California infers that those who affected with COVID might have a chance to get affected by Alzheimer's during the early stage of human life. Will this have an impact on our brand recall strategy?
I think
This one, Professor Koshi will answer. I have no idea.
I think, we sometimes give overemphasis on some of these pesky little research where they don't have sufficient evidence, and onset of Alzheimer's is, it doesn't happen immediately. Somebody has a certain, it is like saying that, I remember, in the earlier generation, my early generation, some elders once told me that typhoid used to be one of the frequent, very heavy fever during typhoid. And at that time, even paracetamols were not available. So what they used to do is that put cold water and make the body. See, many times a person who suffers high temperature for several days come out of this typhoid problem and they'll suffer a temporary loss of memory. There has been cases of, because of the, see, you cannot attribute similar kind of a thing to, COVID and Alzheimer's and those kinds of things. If you actually, this is one of those research, I have not seen that research paper, but one thing I can tell you, if you say something sensible, very limited number of people will look at you. If you say something totally irrational and saying that, this is what my research tells you, then people sit up and say, maybe he has some point of view, let me explore. So therefore, I think leave it at that. I don't think these are, any implication for marketeers in the short run. People who loses memory become Alzheimer's patients in the long run. Anyway, they will not be buying your, the latest style of ready-made garments. So,
I know. Okay. And one more question is there from one Chaitanya Bhagavan. It's a question is how consumer in different regions across the world communicates to a brand. How behavior of different people change according to region. So it was a question in how this has an impact, brand communication.
Yeah, I think it's a very sort of very complex question. I don't think there's a ready-made answer for this, because I have not come across any study which is cross-country in terms of communication with the brand, how brands communicate. I think the closest that comes essentially in marketing parlance is essentially, do you position the same product, in a similar way across markets? The answer is that positioning is always a function also of the competitive structure. So therefore, the answer is no, certainly, but there can be similar positioning, because at certain level, for example, if you look at many of the products of P&G, there's no significant difference in positioning across certain brands, because it attracts a certain kinds of consumer problem at a certain level, and that problem exists across cultures. Therefore, you actually can position the brand as a problem solver for certain type of consumer. So other than that, if, for example, you take any product that contains neem, in Malayalam they say vapor, any product that contains neem. Now, in fact, if you look at outside India, how many people would even know about neem, the medicinal properties of neem? So therefore, you can't do a dance and drama on neem if you are going to Europe, because people not know neem from, something else. So therefore, you cannot have a communication which is one single communication for most of the companies. It's very difficult. It has to be contextual, based on the competitive structure, based on consumer understanding at consumers level. So therefore, answer is very difficult to give a full answer. You cannot have one size fit all solution in terms of marketing. That's it.
Sir, we can take two more questions. I have already received the questions. The question is, since there is a huge number of private label brands coming, the question is how international brands or established brands, how can they compete and win in the battle with local brands or maybe your private brands?
Yeah, I think Shraddha can answer that question.
Yeah, I think.
I think, look, I mean, it's not easy is the simple answer, because I think, in some markets you win, in some markets you don't. I think it keeps going back to what is the consumer paying for beyond the brand name. So I think what, the strategy of retailer brands is usually a slightly worse off product without any marketing support, and higher trade margins and higher margins to the retailer. And that's how the private label business works. I think the only way branded products can win over the long term is to bring distinctive, superior propositions that the consumer is willing to pay for, together with the brand name. I don't think if you have exactly the same product, if you have exactly the same proposition and you just put a brand on it, consumers understand and they don't pay for it forever. In fact, there are retailer brands in some other markets, like Aldi in Europe is an excellent example, it is such a good quality product that Aldi, which was a private label, has itself become a brand. And in many of those markets, multinationals have had a really, really tough time being able to compete with Aldi, and they haven't won. So I think the simple answer is, at the end, the brand name is a small part of it, but behind that brand name, you need the R&D and the communication to develop better products, communicate them better to the consumer in a way that, improves their life more than the other offering. Otherwise, I mean, they will go to private label. Why not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wonderful
Thank
answer.
you.
In fact,
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, what she said is that brand actually is a reflection of the entire strategy of a company. It's just not a name. It is actually synthesized strategy of a company. It also captures understanding of the consumers, understanding of the market, so everything is expressed in terms of the brand. Once you understand that, your thinking goes beyond the name, label and the name. Brand is actually the synthesized strategy of a company.
Okay, the last question is from Mitra Kumar. Koshi sir was mentioning how a product being a part of our behavior becomes difficult to get rid of. So keeping this in mind, how OTT platforms, which has increased its market during this pandemic, can devise a strategy to sustain its demand post-pandemic?
OTT platform and, no, I can't get the connection. OTT platform?
The live streaming platforms have got a lot of traction now. Everybody is using it.
Yeah.
So whether this will sustain after pandemic?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the way in which, in fact, entertainment has moved from the table to your palm, as simple as that. So now it is actually palm which is actually providing you with the entertainment. So that shift has taken place. So once that happens, then you are actually interested more in the entertainment or information, and not so much in terms of the platform. In certain kind of thing, there is a far stronger. Say, for example, if you want to know about something, I mean, the normal word you use is that Google it. So which means that, Google is the ultimate God of all knowledge. So, there's nobody who will say that any other platform for this thing. But at the same time, if you look at the whole, world of entertainment, I think people are more loyal to the type of entertainment and the type of, programs rather than the platform. So that, I think, is what is going to drive. And obviously, everything is in your palm now. You don't have to, it's not a fixed seat entertainment anymore. It is a variable seat entertainment today. So you don't have to sit in one place. You can walk around and see things, right? So all the
So-
youngsters would actually be, I mean, they'll be doing that in the class also, no?
Yeah. Yes. So I think in the nutshell, if you ask who can win, I think who is very close to the customer, who reinforces, who is retain the customer, and who understand the customer well can maybe
Absolutely.
overcome this pandemic and can be winners.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I just call upon our Father Francis Manuvalan, our Assistant Director. Father, please, for your closing remarks.
So thank you for giving me an opportunity. So very respected Professor Abraham Koshi, then Ms. Shraddha Shankar, Senior Director, Baby Care Asia Pacific region for P&G, moderator of this Rajagiri webinar, Dr. Pathanathan, then all our faculty members, our invited guests, listeners, our students. So we are very happy and very proud to be part of this wonderful webinar on mainly the marketing, about the brand and how the brands should maybe overcome the crisis, something like that. And this is one of the most memorable webinar in the history of maybe Rajagiri. So first of all, let me congratulate the organizer, especially Dr. Padmanabhan, for conducting this kind of very highly appreciated webinar for our students, not only for students, our alumni, and not only alumni, our entire faculty and our friends also. So we have great respect for Dr. Professor Abraham Koshi, a legendary teacher in marketing, maybe a pride of Kerala. So he is from Kerala. We are also very much proud of him. Okay, and we have heard a lot about Abraham Koshi sir. And today our students got a wonderful opportunity to listen to the maybe igniting words about branding, marketing from the real guru, Abraham Koshi sir. So, sir, we are very much indebted to you, and we thank you so much for your acceptance in participating and sharing your insights to our students and all the participants of this wonderful webinar. Sir,
Thank you.
in the name of entire Rajagiri management, staff, and students, I place on record our heartfelt gratitude to you. And the other day we had a conversation. We had a personal talk with Abraham.
I could see you now.
Yeah. So sir has extended his support not only for this webinar alone, maybe there will be continuing support from his part, and we are waiting for that. Thank you, sir. And you rightly mentioned, now even though I am also teacher of marketing and brand, today I got a very wonderful insight about what is a brand. Brands synthesize the strategy of a company. So very beautifully summarized maybe a definition for a brand. Okay, so we will remember forever. So thank you, sir. And still also we remember your maybe some of the suggestion, reposing faith in consumers, then improving efficiencies. Then again, as already Patnab sir mentioned, consumers need to be reinforced, and getting consumers into your fold. Then just to go to the market and find 5 people, okay, a small mantra. Just ask them category wise, what are the criteria for selecting maybe the items or products or services during this pandemic time. Then you will get the real, maybe the sense of the marketing, okay, the strategy you can maybe frame according to that. Thank you sir, so much, sir, for your beautiful words. Then we have a wonderful maybe industry expert, Shraddha Shankar. Another important maybe thing about this particular webinar is to keep maybe key speakers, and one the master, another shishya. Okay, the guru and shishya coming together. Now, what the guru taught maybe years back, the shishya is practicing, and now the guru is giving her another chance. Let me hear from my shishya and let me listen from her, because she is she has grown, maybe she knows more about me, you see. So this is the ultimate aim and objective of every teacher. My student should be knowing more than me. Okay, that person should grow more than me. Okay, this wonderful, that emotional, maybe that aspect we could witness today. So anyway, Shraddha Shankar, we know that you are very, very busy person, and from PNG, a senior director from PNG, coming to and talking to our students. It's a really wonderful experience. Ma'am, from our bottom of our heart, we thank you for
Thank you so much.
being part of this webinar, and your word continuing in building maybe consumer welfare. So the companies should focus on building consumer welfare and be transparent, be loyal. And the most of your talk, you are actually reinforcing the need of maybe the sincerity from the company, the genuineness. Okay, those factors only will pay back. Okay, something, some reward. That area you are actually mentioning. So thank you so much. And
Thank you
please
so
come
much.
again and support and okay, visit us also, because your friend is here, your batchmate is here. I also take this opportunity to thank Abhilash sir for bringing Shraddha Shankar to this particular webinar. Thank you, Abhilash sir, and we are expecting this kind of association and maybe talks in the future also. Wishing you all the best, and definitely you will take PNG in the right direction during this crisis also, based on your
Thank you so
wisdom,
much.
experience, and everything. Thank you so much. And I also take this opportunity to thank Dr. Patnavan for beautifully organizing this event, uh, uh, maybe inviting the world leading teachers and the practitioners. Okay, so thank you, sir, for beautifully moderating the session, asking questions, framing
Thank you, sir.
questions, and everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
I also
Thank you.
take this time to thank all our senior marketing professors, HODs, professors, then our alumni, then there are a lot of people from industry, other institutions. So thank you so much and listening, okay, this webinar. Thank you so much. I also thank all our students for your keen interest to learn more about the branding, marketing from maybe the learned and experienced minds, okay, in the world. So thank you, students, and we hope that you will remember these things and you will practice maybe when you become maybe industrialists or maybe marketing practitioners. So I also thank all our staff members, technical staff who arranged all this webinar and everything. Thank you so much. So before winding up, I have a small request to all of you. During the crisis, various companies and organizations have come up with various products and services, maybe customizing their need. And Rajagiri is also coming up with a lot of solutions. And one of the such solutions, maybe the program is one e-marathon that is actually aimed to engage people, okay, and to boost their mental well-being. It is combined with the yoga, then relaxation sessions, then a lot of expert talks and real running. So this activity is going to take place from 28th of this month to October 10th. So most probably Nirmala Sitharaman, maybe the finance minister, will be inaugurating. So we have sent a request to her. So we have an association with the Confederation of Indian Industry, then various ministries. So I request all of you to take part in this particular event, and this is a global event. You can participate from anywhere. I think most of the details, I think Patnavan sir will share with you. So once again, congratulate and appreciate and thank you all the participants and all the speakers and organizers for this wonderful event. Once again, thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Father. So I think thank you, Koshi sir, and thank you, Shraddha ma'am, being a part of this webinar. And I think it was one of the enlightening sessions ever happened in Rajagiri. Thanks a lot. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.